About a dozen years ago, I gave up my job as a daily newspaper reporter to answer a higher calling. Now I know what you're thinking. Higher calling than journalist? How tough can that be? I mean, given the state of media today, you'd be hard-pressed to find a job that wasn't considered of higher status than that of journalist. Sorry, journalist in the room, but think about it, really. Tax collector, telemarketer, used car salesman, Al-Qaeda recruiter. I guarantee you put every one of those on a list with journalists, and the journalists would rank dead last every time. But for a good long stretch, I loved being a journalist. I worked in that business for more than 2 decades, the last 15 of which I spent with the Los Angeles Times as a metro reporter out in this neck of the woods. But the truth is that industry changed over the years, and so did my job. By the end, I'd become little more than an ambulance chaser, bouncing from one disaster to the next. The truth is I was ready to leave. And then one day my wife called. "Hey, honey, how you doing?" I said, "Just fine. I'm out here chasing ambulances." She said, "Oh, good. I've got some news." You know that feeling you get in the pit of your stomach when someone says they've got some news? I braced for the worst. Then she said, "How'd you like to quit your job?" My wife had also been a Times reporter, and she'd quit her job 2 years previously upon the birth of our daughter to be a stay-at-home mom. And she was calling to tell me that she had just gotten this sweet job offer to head admissions for a local independent school. And she wanted to know whether I wanted to quit my job and become a full-time stay-at-home dad. I think the next thing she heard was the dial tone as I ran out the door and got into my car and raced out of the parking lot. I'd done a little bit of research at the time, and the Census Bureau reported that there were fewer than 150,000 stay-at-home dads nationwide compared to more than 5 million stay-at-home moms. And here, out of the blue, was my wife offering me this great gift, this opportunity to parent in a way that few fathers get to do. Of course, if I'd thought about it for more than a minute, I might have questioned the exchange policy on this gift. Because I've got to tell you, I have covered fires and floods, murder and mayhem of every stripe imaginable, but I was ill-prepared for the chaos that can be unleashed by a 2-year-old girl. Even a green-eyed beauty with a fondness for pink cowboy boots and twirly skirts. Turns out our little Alex had a nose for mischief, and boy did we double down on this score. We live on this sprawling citrus ranch on the east end of Ojai. There you go. It's a magical place. It's made for a kid. Imagine more than 100 acres of trees and rocks and rugged playground. But it's also the kind of place that's tailor-made for mischief. And if you're a parent, especially one like me, new to the stay-at-home ranks, it's the kind of place that'll scare the hell out of you. I will admit to you now that I lost Alex more than once. She used to love to play these games where she would run under the tree skirts of the orchards that surrounded our home and stay as quiet as possible. I'd go out there and I'd yell and I'd scream her name, and the terror would be rising in my voice. But of course, it's hide and seek, so she'd stay just as quiet as she could be. If I were lucky, I'd finally elicit a giggle or a laugh, and I'd locate her. But there were some scary moments in the unknown, right? On more than one occasion, I plucked her off the back ends of tractors and spray rigs and various other farm implements. And I would look on as horror as she wrestled away from my grasp to go tumble over the giant boulders that dot this creek that cuts through our property. I was certain every one of those instances that she was one slip away from concussion or coma. I watched her corner snakes and lizards. I watched her fall into ponds and make the equivalent of snow angels. I watched from my kitchen window as she did battle with this giant ornery goose we used to have. It was mean. This goose was really mean. I'm not sure why we kept it around. We had named this goose Lucy. Alex would ultimately rename it Lucifer. The issues came up and we handled them all as they arose. From nap time to potty training. I learned to bandage her boo-boos and color coordinate her clothing and braid her hair and respond, not always patiently, to her incessant questioning. Hey, Dad, 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 hey, Dad, hey, Dad. And I got to watch this miracle unfold. Um, it's funny when I think back about it now. These memories of Alex, they come to me in snapshots, right? They float through my mind. And I think about what a magical time this was. Um, uh, we'll never get this time again, quite frankly. Um, and every time I think back about it now, it really does make my heart swell. I used to call my time with Alex my years of living dangerously. Um, but the truth of the matter is those years came to an end way too soon. A few years down the road, I took a job as a high school teacher at the same school that my wife was working at. And Alex took a slot in that school's preschool program. We started school on exactly the same day, and we every year since, we've taken the same first day of school photo on the front steps of our home, surrounded by those orchards. Alex is in 8th grade now. She's getting ready to graduate. She will be a freshman in my humanities class next year. Mm. Yeah. She better watch. One of us better watch out, right? One of us is in trouble. I know that, right? Talk about new beginnings. That certainly is one. There was another along the way. Her mother and I divorced a few years ago. That one hit me out of the blue. Hit me like a thunderbolt, quite frankly. Left me unbalanced and scarred. Because we worked at the same place, that divorce seemed so public to me, with Alex as kind of the central figure. Honestly, I spent a lot of those early days just hiding, just trying to figure out how to get out of bed in the morning and how to breathe in and out. When her mother and I told Alex about this divorce, and anyone who's ever had to do that knows what an awful day that is. She said, shed a single tear, one tear, right? She's a tough cookie. And I've talked to her about it plenty since, and she never wants to let on that this affects her. But of course, the fact of the matter is, she needed me to get out of bed, right? She needed me to be her dad. And so I got out of bed, and I became her dad again, right? We reshaped our relationship, and it's become something new and something different. I'm a much better cook than I used to be. I've kind of dedicated myself to this task, although I think Alex would probably eat anything I put on her plate because she wouldn't want me to hurt her, wouldn't want to hurt my feelings. I even cook once a week for Alex and her mom and I as we try to keep some semblance of family together. I've learned to relish the collisions of Mario Kart and the combat of Super Smash Brothers. Alex kicks my ass at these games all the time. But I love playing them, and I love playing them together. We can do this for hours, actually. Alex and I together have developed this love of music. She is a great musician. I am an adequate one. But we sing and we play the ukulele, and she teaches me songs. We even got to take a star turn last year at our school's Festival of Talent. Pretty special. And I'd like to think, please never ask Alex if you see her, but I'd like to think that I'm far more patient than I used to be. I've tried to learn not to sweat the small stuff, although it's hard at times when I find dirty dishes in the closet, or wet towels on the floor, or I'm being called again to provide taxi service for one social engagement or the other. I'm frustrated at times, amused at others, but as always, we figure a way to work it out. I think partly that's due to the fact that Alex has me figured out. When she was young and I was at home with her and she knew I was frustrated, she would fix me with these giant, eye-popping hugs. And she called me her best boy. And I used to think that there was nothing better in the world, you know. The other day, She was coming home late from some social engagement. So I got a text. So this is our new form of communication, right? I got a text, and she told me she was running late. She'd be home soon. And then she sent a second text, and she said, "I love you, Dad." I used to think that there was nothing better. But given the seismic shifts in our relationship, given the way we keep kind of patching it together and figuring things out, I'll take that. Thank you.